wheelchairs, explosions, and a jar of aioli mayo. Normally this channel focuses on reviewing Steam games in alphabetical order, but I also do a weekly livestream that features community nominated games with 200 or less reviews. To make sure no one misses out, we're going on a side quest to review your suggested games, starting with Larry's New Wheelchair. Quest accepted. Released in February of 2023, this was produced and published by Peter Norter, and is the only game they've released. So far. At the time of writing, it only has 4 reviews. Let's take a quick look at what they said about the game. Larry's New Wheelchair, an upgrade that brings freedom and independence. Larry's New Wheelchair is undoubtedly an experience that I will never forget. A cool summer's eve, I bought this game for 59 cents whilst it was on sale. I was not expecting such an emotional journey. Yup. That's all it says. Yup. The game begins with a still frame of Larry in his wheelchair and 3 options: New Game, Continue, or Levels. There's no options menu at this stage because that's actually accessed once you're in the game, and when you do access it, the only customization you've got is limited to a single audio slider and resolution settings that contain double, triple, quadruple, or more of the same options. I'm grateful to have some options rather than none, but can we please access them from the title screen? Before we get started, it's worth mentioning that this is the only time that Larry is shown with a nasal cannula. It's actually missing during the rest of the game. Diving into the game itself, the utterly ridiculous journey begins with Larry in his bedroom. Controls are WASD style tank controls where... oh god, what is that noise? Does it sound like this all the time? Yes. Yes, it does. That squeaking noise plays whenever you're moving. And thanks to the nearby handwritten note, we also learn that Larry's main method of self-defense is to detonate explosives strapped to his chair, which is done by spamming left click and ringing the bell. So now we have both constant chair squeaks and bell ringing. Fantastic. You know it's going to be a good game when the first word in the actual tutorial is spam. The first level gives you space to learn the basic controls, and as I was saying, Larry is controlled tank style. You use the mouse to look around, but you turn it with A and D and use W or S to move forwards or backwards. This level tasks you with escaping the care home by grabbing the key and leaving through the front door. You're asked to sneak by the caretaker, which is actually done by rolling straight in front of her. If you tried to go behind her, you'd get caught, because all enemies are triggered based on a simple proximity radius, not line of sight. If you do happen to get spotted, you have the ability to trigger a massive fart by pressing E, which will stun any enemy caught in it for a couple of seconds. The move is on a 10-second cooldown indicated by the, well, indicator in the top left. Red means it's recharging, and green means Larry is ready to release the next bioweapon. Side note, I'm guessing a refilling bar that shows how close to being recharged the ability is was too hard to program, so a simple indicator is all you'll get, and you'd better be grateful for it. Larry has one other move, which is a spin attack. The way this is animated is, well, just look at it. This does a small amount of damage to anything nearby and has a 2-second cooldown, but this move doesn't get any kind of indicator to show when it's recharged. Heading outside, you're tasked with getting some money to pay for a bus ride, which costs $100 due to inflation. How does Larry get money? By cashing in his pension fund? Nope, but there are some bystanders that decide to beat up an innocent old man when you approach, and the cops are in on it too. So everyone gets exploded. And this is basically how combat works. Approach the enemies until they give chase, then mash that left mouse button until some explosions happen and Larry is the only person left standing. Sitting. Sorry, Larry, please don't hurt me. Enemies here will drop cash and will also sometimes drop a medkit that fully restores Larry's health. Health has a maximum of 100 and refills fairly quickly if you're injured, so there's really only a danger of dying if you happen to be surrounded by enemies and unable to move. Cash in hand, we go to hop on the bus, but the caretaker lady from earlier drops down from somewhere and sends the nearby cars flying and then proceeds to pull out a bazooka and attacks Larry. Wait a second. Where did that bazooka come from? Actually, I don't think I want to know. We're put into an arena and this is our first boss fight. It's a pretty simple affair. The caretaker, Beatrice, will stand in the center and shoot rockets at Larry every few seconds. In between shots, dash in and explode and then dash out again. I say dash, but there isn't a sprint button to move faster, so it's really more like slowly and threateningly rolling in and exploding. And sometimes doing a massive fart before leaving just to add insult to injury. On an interesting note, up until now, the game didn't have any music. In fact, the game only uses music during boss fights. At all other times, the only sounds you have are the chair squeaks, bell rings, and explosions. I appreciate that they've gone to the effort of putting some music in, but not being consistent with it is a sign of poor quality. Then again, given the content and the nature of the game so far, I don't think quality was really on the devs' mind when they made this. It was likely just made for a bit of fun. After dive bombing Beatrice enough times, she explodes into gibbets and we can finally board the bus. In the following cutscene, we see the bad guys give chase after Larry, who retaliates by jumping out of the back of the bus, tied with a rope and with a rocket launcher in hand. First off, as far as a concept goes, this is pretty cool for a chase sequence. In terms of implementation, it's pretty lacking. You're limited to left and right movement only. 2 to 3 hits will kill you, so dodge the enemy's shots and then fire back when you can. Repeat for all 3 cars, which are mechanically identical. As I said, it's a great concept, but poorly implemented. Either have 3 cars, each with a different mechanic, or 1 car that goes through 3 different phases. Don't do 3 of the exact same thing. Enemies defeated, we arrive at what is presumably our intended destination, and another handwritten note instructs us to enter the Black House. We have no clue who is writing these notes or why we're trusting them, but who are we to question them? Larry also unfortunately left his rocket launcher behind, so now we'll have to do this the old-fashioned way. There's a key being held by a member of a group to one side who appear to be minding their own business, so of course we head over and blow them up. The key doesn't unlock the Black House, but instead unlocks the Yellow House over the street. Ah, yellow key for the Yellow House. Got it. Yellow key, Yellow House. Makes sense, I guess. Inside this house we find Larry's first upgrade, a spring. Before I collect this, please note how the rotation animation doesn't loop properly. Love it. The spring allows Larry's wheelchair to jump, which we'll need to use to climb onto the roof of the Black House. Before we do though, I'd like to mention that this Yellow House is incredibly bare inside. I shouldn't have expected anything else, but given how well designed the care home was, I guess I set the bar for interior decoration a little too high. I'll drop it back down to hobo level, sorry. The jump mechanic feels absolutely awful. If you touch a wall when jumping, it causes the wheelchair to grip to it, reducing your jump height. So to climb onto the roof, you'll need to roll back slightly, but not too far, otherwise you'll fall off, and then work your way up to the top. Once there, Larry is teleported inside. No cool moment of dropping through the ceiling, they probably didn't have the budget to animate that. This level will likely be where most people stop playing, if they haven't already. This is a survival level. Enemies will enter from the blank entrances and can either be unarmed or equipped with a rocket launcher. As always, 2 to 3 hits from a rocket launcher will kill you. And do you remember earlier when I said this? There's really only a danger of dying if you happen to be surrounded by enemies and unable to move. So the odds of that happening are incredibly high because it's such a tight space to maneuver. Thankfully, enemies will sometimes drop medkits, so it's just a matter of making sure that you keep moving and hoping that RNGesus is on your side. The worst part of all this though is there isn't any indicator of how long you need to survive. No timer, no enemy kill counter, nothing. You've just got to live until the game thinks you've had enough. Anyway, let's keep moving. The next level is straightforward enough and begins with another note that tasks you with finding a new hat. Navigate through the open air mall, blowing up the police that try to impede your glorious quest, and find the hat shop. Another cutscene will play, showing Larry ignoring the laws of reality and phasing through a solid door, only to be kicked out again, this time with the sound of smashing glass. Another man, the hat aficionado, jumps out and stares menacingly at Larry for several seconds. And thus begins the second boss fight. Similar to Beatrice, he will just stand in the middle, but he will alternate between throwing his hat and firing his pistol. If you manage to read the very tiny text at the bottom of the screen, you'll learn the key to beating the hat aficionado. Use the spin attack to deflect the hat, hitting him with his own attack. As before, there aren't any other mechanics, so just repeat this until he dies. When his health is low enough, he'll jump onto the roof and throw a flurry of hats at Larry. Larry, having already ignored several laws of physics, decides that one more won't matter, and jumps up along the hats and then blows up the hat aficionado in a slow motion quick time event. And now the hat is yours. The next section places Larry in a desert where a road and train track intersect. Another note instructs Larry to collect 5 pieces of dynamite. Larry, now a cold-blooded killer, doesn't even hesitate to kill the 4 groups of police that are standing around for no discernible reason and collects 4 pieces of dynamite. A short cutscene shows us that the 5th is in the hands of Sniper Finger, our next boss fight. Sniper Finger lives up to his name. He'll fire shots at you from across the map that will do around 70 points of damage, so 2 in a row will kill you. If you manage to land a hit on him, he'll teleport away to another random location. Use the cacti and cars as cover to approach and blow him up, or use the hat, bound to Q, to try and snipe him back. Speaking of the hat, there's an elephant in the room that needs to be addressed. Judging from the comments during the livestream and on the Steam reviews, this game is apparently filled with Breaking Bad references. Larry himself is a parody or possibly homage to the character Hector Salamanca, and I can certainly see the references in the character design. Unfortunately though, I've not watched Breaking Bad. I know, it's a great show, but when you've literally got the entire Steam library to play through, I ain't got time for that. Keep an eye out for the final boss though, you'll likely also recognise them as a character from Breaking Bad. Anyway, Sniper Finger retreats and Larry uses the dynamite to blow the train off the tracks, only to immediately turn into a Lego master builder, reassemble it and then drive off in the train. Given how quickly he can apparently move, the entire dynamite plan seems incredibly pointless. We arrive in an alley and Sniper Finger is on a roof above us. Use the conveniently placed pillars to move from cover to cover and avoid being turned into Swiss cheese, and then blow up the also conveniently placed red barrels and topple the building to create a new path. Side note, I love how red barrels have become so ingrained in gaming language that everyone knows just by their appearance that they will explode, and will be incredibly disappointed if they don't. Make your way around the shipping containers, climbing up onto one, dodging the rocket launcher wielding cop, and drop into the shipping area in the next room. This is yet another boss fight, this time against a man wearing a black ski mask and wielding a chainsaw. Everything about this screams stereotypical horror villain, except for the fact that their name is Miguel. Call me old school, but I associate Miguel with The Road to El Dorado, an excellent movie produced by DreamWorks in the year 2000. Somehow, I don't think this was an intended reference. Miguel will constantly move towards you and is slightly faster than you. The tactic here is to alternate your stunning fart and explosions to deal some damage, and then use the teleporter in the corner to put some distance between you. If you have been paying attention, and I wouldn't blame you if you weren't, you may also have seen these same teleporters in the desert level. They are functional in that level, but only move you between the 2 corners of the map and are therefore essentially useless. With Miguel dead, we take his chainsaw and give Larry's wheelchair its final upgrade. The chainsaw requires fuel to use, which is dropped randomly by enemies and will kill an enemy in a single hit. Larry uses the chainsaw in an impressive acrobatic feat to escape the docking bay and arrives at the next note with instructions. And these might be some of the strangest instructions I've seen in a while. Make some aioli mayo and bribe the skyscraper bouncer with it. Now, this is going to be incredibly pedantic of me to say, but I think that's part of why you're here. Aioli is garlic mayo. Saying aioli mayo or even garlic aioli is redundant. It's just aioli. Now, before you ask, yes, I tested to see if you could just kill the bouncer. Apparently he's 100% explosion and chainsaw resistant, so I guess we'll do what the note says. Grab the garlic from the park to the right of the building and the mayo from the store on the left. The bouncer happily devours everything, including the jar because he's just that manly, and then lets you inside. And now we're into the second wave defense section, but thankfully this is in a larger space, so dodging the enemy's attacks is somewhat easier than before. Once again though, there is no indicator to show you how much longer you need to survive. Given that we're waiting for the lift, using the lights above it to show how close the lift is would have been a great environmental indicator of progress. But no. Survive long enough and we're on to the final section of the game. This is where I'd normally put a spoiler warning, but let's be honest, you're not going to play this game. So let's just carry on, shall we? On the top of the roof, who do we find but Bob, who tears off his shirt and attacks Larry. This fight is pretty basic and functions much like the one with Miguel. Only instead of having to teleport away when he gets too close, you simply use the spin attack to block Bob's melee attack. The most impressive thing about this fight is Bob's apparent six-pack, which looks like a block of chocolate that was stuck to his stomach. Jokes aside, Bob is the first and only boss to have a second phase. Once defeated, he kicks Larry off the building and then jumps down after him to finish Larry off. At this point, Bob decides to pull out a gun. Not sure why he wasn't using that before, but then again, he barely uses it during this fight anyway. If you stay close enough to him, Bob will only use melee attacks, which can still be blocked with a well-timed spin attack. So this fight basically plays out exactly like the first. Awesome. Deal enough damage and Sniper Finger appears one last time, but for whatever reason he decides to shoot Bob instead of us. Something as simple as bullets would never kill Bob though, who shrugs it off and leaps up to Sniper Finger, slapping him away like Hulk punching Thor. Before this happens, Sniper Finger tosses Larry some chainsaw fuel. In what I assume is meant to be the grand finale, the most awesome and cinematic scene in the game, one that should move you to tears, Larry stabs Bob with the chainsaw and then uses a mid-air explosion to finish him off. With Bob defeated, Larry and Sniper Finger then head back to the nursing home together. Why are they now friends? Why are they returning to the place Larry escaped from? Who left the mysterious notes? Why does Larry need to be pushed? These are questions we'll never answer, and I'm okay with that. Larry's new wheelchair is without a doubt an absolute mess of a game. However, I think the devs have some interesting ideas for concepts and set pieces. They just either don't yet have the skill or didn't take the time to polish what they had created before releasing it onto Steam. And I think it's worth mentioning that this game is $4.99 Canadian, which is a bit pricey for roughly a 1 hour experience. Now, I also don't want to discourage the devs. As I said, I think there are some good ideas here that show there's some potential, but as a final product is lacking the polish that would make it work as an enjoyable game. The first thing I'd recommend changing is the spam clicking for the explosion. It might have worked better if it were a case of holding down the button to charge up an explosion that would get bigger and more powerful the longer it's held. The UI in general needs improvements to show the different attacks recharging and progress through the survival sections. The enemies need more variety, such as weaker but fast-moving attack dogs, enemies that throw grenades, or ones that try to flank you rather than just following behind. That said, it would take a lot of polish to get this game into a condition that would make people actually interested in it. As it currently stands, it's impossible for me to actually recommend it to anyone. And that's why my final rating for Larry's new wheelchair is a bell out of 10. It's short, but also very annoying. Quest complete. Welcome to the end of the video. A massive thank you to all the channel members on screen for supporting the channel, especially our Knights of the Holy Grail, Freaky Feline and Loveheart Gonzi. If you'd like to become a member, you can do so for as little as $1 per month. Just click the join button to see the available membership levels and perks. Becoming a member allows you to suggest games to be featured on the livestream and therefore the side quest series in the future. Check the Discord for more information. And lastly, thank you for joining me on this weird gaming adventure through the depths of Steam. Take care.